Hello and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole and Joe Lalo, as usual. This week, our guest is Dan Wood from Draft2Digital, and we're going to be talking about, first off, what Draft2Digital is and how you can make the most of it if you're going to use them as for distributing ebooks. And then we're going to kind of ask Dan what he's figured out about international sales and doing better and selling well on the non-Amazon platforms. So yeah, I guess that's my introduction. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us. Do you want to tell us kind of what Draft2Digital is and how you got involved?
So, Draft2Digital is a service for authors that aims at really helping independent authors both convert their books from a Word document into all the formats if they don't already have those formats, and tools to help you manage and save time. Because as your catalog gets bigger and bigger, it becomes much more difficult to do all the things that you know you want to be doing, like having end links to go to the right retailer. When you have to log into 7 to 8 different websites to upload your tax information or to change your description, that can be very time consuming. So we make tools to kind of help authors with all of that. We offer several distribution channels that you wouldn't be able to get into otherwise. We just continue to add to that list of features, that list of distributors, so that if you choose to go wide, you can go wide to a whole bunch of retailers very easily and very quickly and not have to worry about with those, because we do a lot of vetting of all of our vendors that we add to make sure that they can quickly change prices, delist a book, list a book, all those things. So it's a little bit of what we do.
Okay, yeah, and for those who don't know, like who all do you distribute to?
So we distribute. I'm gonna pull up the list real quick so I don't forget. It's iBooks, so that's the Apple platform. Barnes and Noble, Kobo, Tolino, 24 Symbols, Scribd, Inkterra, and CreateSpace. Now, I imagine most of your listeners have heard of iBooks, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and maybe Scribd. Tolino is a conglomerate of different German booksellers. So a bunch of their traditional bookstores in Germany got together and decided to form one big digital platform. So no matter which one of their websites you visit and buy a book on, it would work on one device and one application, which is called the Tolino. There's no like Tolino store, but they are one of the big players in the German market. And depending on who you talk to, they're anywhere from half the market to a little bit less than that for digital books in Germany. 24 Symbols is a subscription service that really aims at Spanish-speaking markets, primarily in South America. And so they've done some innovative partnerships with cell phone providers there and places where people don't typically have credit cards often, to where people can, their app gets pre-bundled with the phone. People can opt into that as a service with their phone and pay for that subscription for their phone. So, they've been growing for us. Both those channels have been growing for us over the last year. And then Inkterra, most people know them as Page Foundry. They changed their name recently.
All right, cool. And as many people will know, you can upload directly to Apple and Barnes & Noble and Kobo now, although I think maybe you have to be in the US still for Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
But I will agree, as somebody now that has like 40, 50, I don't even know how many ebooks out there, it does get tedious when, like, if you're going to run a sale or something and you have to drop the price to go into all the different platforms and do it. So I can definitely see the appeal of just doing it in one spot or two spots.
Yeah, and frequently, it's retailers can have lots of issues with accounting and getting payments off at the same time. We have direct connections with the different retailers to make sure our accounting is good. We actually have a phone number for support where people can call in when they have questions, which is unheard of in this industry. And so it can just simplify a lot of things that you might otherwise spend a lot of time on. We did make our whole system opt-in from the very get-go to support people. If you want to go direct, go direct. If you want to use us for one retailer, use us for one. We try to support whatever authors want to do.
Awesome. Now, can you give us an idea, kind of like how the sales break down for the different marketplaces? Like, who is your, highest, like, which is your best retailer for authors and which the second best, or does it vary a lot depending on the author?
It's been fairly so I'm going to talk about an aggregate first. It would completely vary by the author. In aggregate, iBooks has always been our top seller, with Barnes and Noble very close behind. Kobo would be our third biggest seller. Right now, Tolino has moved into the fourth spot, and that's just has steadily grown. Scribd was our fourth for a long time. And then all the others kind of follow down that line. We do help some authors with Create Space, so we can help people set up print on demand. We don't sell a ton of print.
Neither do I. I keep hoping, though.
Yeah, we're really aimed at the digital anyway, so we don't mind. I tell people, get your print on demand book up just so it makes your ebook price look better.
Yeah, I tell people to buy the ebook if it's at all convenient, because I'll actually make more and they pay a lot less on the ebooks, of course.
Exactly.
So you mentioned that you have a Spanish market and a German market. Are any of them like coming on strong? And are these people that are reading English language books, or do you have people uploading into those languages?
So our fastest growing retailers right now are Kobo and Tolino, which Kobo also, we think of them as the Canadian retailer, but they've really early on, they identified the international markets was where they expected the biggest growth. And so they have a lot of partnerships. They get you into about 195 different countries and territories worldwide. Still for Kobo, English language is our number one seller. Kobo has been very strong, obviously, in Canada, where they're their home country, and Australia for us. Likewise, iBooks is very strong in Australia. Tolino, we just ran the numbers recently, and about 81% of our sales are in German. So that will be either they were native language German or translations. And the other 18% or so is English sales. All the other languages trail way behind. They're like way less than 1%. But that's kind of one of the main reasons we were interested in getting Tolino, is because they were needing. There's a lot of English speakers in the German market, and a lot of them read in English, and so we wanted to get our books in, and they want a more English language. There have been a lot of authors we've known who've done translations or come from Germany who have since then done very well at Tolino with German language. 24/7, I haven't ran the numbers yet, so I'm not quite sure. I would imagine they have mostly Spanish partners. They do have some English language partners, so I imagine it's more of a split than Tolino is.
Do you think with the Spanish language stuff that's like, it seems like it should be really a growing market since there's such a huge population speaking and reading in that language. Have you found that at all yet? Do you think it's coming on more? Are they getting more into ebooks in the other Spanish language countries?
So my understanding of the Spanish market is changing quite a bit. It used to follow Spain was the main place where books came from that kind of went out to all the Spanish-speaking world. Obviously, Spanish varies quite a bit. So, there are different dialects, there's different ways, words that you might use in one region that you might not use in another. So they've been slower than typically what I hear is English, obviously, is the number one digital book language. German is a strong number two. After that, depending on genre, it can be French or Italian or even Brazilian Portuguese. And Spanish is towards, it's generally included in the top 5, but towards the bottom.
All right, good to know, especially if you're considering translations. Good to know
Yeah.
which ones might actually make you your money back.
And I think some of it depends on also your personal connections and your history. Obviously, if you are a Spanish speaker, that might work out very well for you. There's several authors, well-known authors that are from Germany. So it's a very natural fit for them. They know the language. They can do their own editing. They can do their own social media. So, for each author, it's going to be a little bit different. But if you're, if you're a American author looking at getting into some of the other markets. I would think about German for, unless you have a very specific reason to do the others first.
Yeah, for me, they're definitely, after all the English-speaking countries, they're my next highest earner across the various platforms for sure.
And I kind of broke it down because I thought this might be interesting for your audience. In German, fantasy does much better than sci-fi for whatever reason. It's about 3 times as much for us as the science fiction. And so I don't know if that's just a difference in the market taste, or it's always hard to read patterns and know exactly, because since we don't distribute to Amazon, we don't have the data on exactly what's doing well at Amazon. It might just be that a lot of great science fiction writers went over to Amazon very early on for Germany. So
yeah, that's interesting to know. I know that a lot of people right now are in the Kindle Select, but I think that's true in fantasy as well as science fiction. So maybe they just like their swords more than their spaceships over there.
yeah.
All right, one more question for me for this part. I was curious, I've kind of heard you talking on some of the other podcasts about all the features you guys are adding to like back of the book stuff to make it easier for people to find and buy more of your books. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's, like maybe what you've added in the last year or two?
Sure. I think we've grown very, very remarkably. We're about 4-year-old company, and we're up to 91,000 books. Most of that's been by word of mouth, especially amongst romance authors. They were some of the first to try our service, and they're very, very connected to each other, and telling each other that they liked our service. We've been trying to steadily grow into the mysteries and thrillers and science fiction and fantasy, and work more with those people. So we've just kept developing tools to make things as easy as possible. Amongst those, we're able to do pre-orders at iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Tolino. Pre-orders are very important because a lot of retailers use them to help them pick merchandising slots. They also give you a chance to kind of stockpile reader review, or just buys of your book beforehand. In a series, they're very important because you want to make sure if someone gets in one book and really loved it and wants to buy the next one, that they can go ahead and do so. So we saw pre-orders as being very strategically advantageous to indie authors, and it's something that traditional publishers were using a lot. So we do at iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Tolino pre-orders with or without manuscripts. So you can, basically all you need to have is your metadata, kind of know the title of the book, what you want it to cost, what category it is, and preferably the cover. You don't have to have the cover everywhere. So like if you wanted to do a cover reveal, you can do that too. We make it very simple. You just put in a future release date into our system, and it'll let you go on through the process without uploading the manuscript. And so what happens then is you'll start getting email reminders when you get kind of close to when we need the file to make sure it distributes everywhere correctly. The really nice thing about all of our retailers is none of them punish you if you want to change your release date. And so it can be, if you want to move it back, you can always move it back. If you want to move it forward, you can always move it forward, as long as you give enough buffer for them to process the file. So like I couldn't upload something today that I set on pre-order and have it go through today, but I could set it like 2 or 3 days from now and it would go through just fine. So pre-orders are something we highly recommend authors to think about. Most of the retailers support them, a year or more in advance. Barnes & Noble is 90 days, but we always can talk to them and get around that if you want to set something up longer than that. So pre-orders are kind of one of the first things we added. Last year we added optimized end matter, and what we mean by that is all the retailers want to get links that are specific to them. Apple's very, very picky about this. So if you give them a book file that's got links to Amazon or another retailer, they will reject it and give you a very stern letter. So we made it to where if people want, they can upload one book file to us, and we'll go ahead and generate all the links and send them out that are specific to each retailer. So a Barnes & Noble book will have Barnes & Noble links. An Apple book will have Apple links, etc. This saves authors hours and hours of time. It's one of the favorite things people have that they talk to me about at conferences is just how much they love this feature. Towards the end of last year, we added new release notifications, which was really aimed at some authors. Like, for instance, one of our founders is an author, Aaron Pogue. He's also a fantasy and sci-fi author. He has never set up an email list. So while we encourage everyone to have an email list, please have an email list. If you don't, for whatever reason, have an email list, this just gives, you can choose, it's just a little opt-in check mark that you add, and we'll add a page and invites readers to subscribe to find out whenever you have a new release. We will then, depending on what platform they came in through, we will email them a link to each time you have a new book come out to whatever vendor they came in through. It's very similar to, I believe Amazon calls it subscribe, or the Amazon subscribe button, or BookBub added a similar feature just recently as well. So it's just something to remind readers that you're around and that you have a new book, because we've seen that helps sell more books always. And then just recently, we released universal book links. So a lot of people have been very excited about this feature. And what we had noticed is a lot of authors, when you go to tweet or to post on your social media, a lot of them will just default to giving an Amazon link. Even if they are wide, they'll just give that Amazon link. And we wanted to make it easier for authors not to have to go through and post like a page worth of links for each retailer. We also want to make it easier for authors to find all the links at different vendors, especially the international vendors. We also want to solve the problem of locational. So we use some geo-location technology to direct readers to the right version of a store for them. So if someone comes in through iBooks Australia, we get them to an iBooks Australia link. So the Universal Book Link is a free service that we offer. Any author, you don't have to use Draft2Digital for any distribution. It's completely separate from Draft2Digital. You can just come in, set up an account, paste in like your Amazon link, and we're going to go out and find as many of the links as we can automatically. We use some scripting technology to go out and we know how it should work on the different book pages after looking at them for quite a bit. And so we kind of scrape off and compare and do a lot of processing to make sure that we get the right links to your book at the different retailers. For when that doesn't work exactly, you can go ahead and paste in a link for all the retailers we support right now, and we're constantly adding on new retailers. The other cool thing about that is that we support affiliate links. And so you can come in and give us all your affiliate codes for Amazon, iBooks, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and we'll go ahead and make sure each link directs the right people to the right affiliate link. So how that ends up working on the reader end is if they click on a books to read link, they're going to see a page. The very first time they use it, they'll see a page that's got a list of all the retailers where we found a link. They'll click on whichever one they prefer. It'll ask them if this is their preferred retailer, and if they click yes, we will save that. And from then on, they will go directly to the retailer. So if they clicked on Amazon, they will always, the next time they use a books to read link, it'll take them to Amazon in their specific country. So a lot of authors have really liked that feature. It also includes custom book links so that you can go in and you can set up your own custom URL. As long as it's not taken by someone else, you can go in and get, you could go in and get books to read /Burke if you wanted to.
All right, cool. Well, that's a lot. It sounds like you guys have been busy there. It's a lot of new stuff.
We really have, and so much of it is aimed at maintaining your current readers. Like, it's hard enough to get found. So once you do get found, we want to make sure we maintain those current readers, keep in touch with those readers, make it as easy as possible for them to buy your book in the future. And then books to read, ultimately, a lot of these features are aiming towards helping with author discoverability and helping authors get traction on all the other vendors, because that's really the hardest part, is not knowing where to start exactly. And so we really want to help authors get there so that they have good reasons not to go into exclusive contracts.
Awesome. Okay, well, let me hand you to the guys, and then later we're going to ask you some questions about how to sell more on those retailers.
Yep. All right. So Draft2Digital, it goes on the same list as Smashwords and is frequently spoken in the same breath as Smashwords. A lot of this answer will deal with the long list of options and features that you just had. But like, how does Draft2Digital sort of differentiate itself from Smashwords?
So the number one question, or the number one answer I give people that like generally converts them, is we pay monthly. There's no reason in this day and age not to pay monthly. So that's been a huge part of the reason people have moved over. Even up to last year, Smashwords had huge problems distributing quickly to different vendors. They've corrected a lot of that, but I still hear if things don't go smoothly, it can take a long time. We have more developers on staff than customer service, so we automate everything we possibly can. When we run across problems, we build in tests and different new solutions. And so that's really given us this huge edge over a lot of our other competitors. We do a lot of back-end auditing to make sure on like a weekly basis that our books are up and they're up at the right price, or if they're supposed to be down, that they are down. We have seen retailers before have accidents where they accidentally relisted content they weren't supposed to. So we're constantly just checking on that. It's kind of a behind the scenes thing that we do. I also feel like earlier I mentioned that we vet our sales channels quite a bit. There are a lot of different sales channels out there, and some people, they ask me why we don't have as many different distribution points as Smashwords does. And it mostly comes down to a lot of them cannot perform changes in a timely manner. And so we've got a lot of different stuff in alpha and beta testing. We're lucky enough to have 2 authors in-house, and so we have a lot of books to work with for alpha testing. We're constantly testing because, as you know, Amazon will send you very strongly worded letters if a price is not right in many, many countries, and many countries that you might not have a way to even check on. So we're having to make sure any vendor we add is making those changes as many places as possible, because it's very, very frustrating. A lot of people early on converted to us because Smashwords didn't support EPUB at the time, and the meat grinder is notoriously painful. We wanted to have a product that didn't require a 100+ page book to teach you how to use our product. Our marketing people worded it as we don't have a style guide, and I thought that is a very bold statement. However, our system is very, very good and works more than 95% of the time with the Word documents we get. It is very aimed at genre fiction, so nonfiction can be problematic. We also don't support fixed layout books, so anything that's highly graphical in nature, it doesn't work with. What we do, though, is if someone brings us a Word document, we will go ahead and generate our sample, generally between 30 seconds to a minute, and you get to download the sample and preview it. If it doesn't look right, we have a button that says help. This doesn't look right. Instead of telling you to go read a book or go work with a service, we have actual humans that will review that request and try to figure out why it didn't work with our system. In some cases, we go ahead and fix our system. In some cases, we just go ahead and fix it, or we let you know what would need to be done to fix it. But we didn't want to put all of the burden of that on the user. Since the beginning, we've supported EPUB files, so people don't have to use our conversion. They can just bring an EPUB to us, and we will distribute it. Most of our new features we now support even on the EPUB. So even if we didn't generate the EPUB, we can go ahead and do those new things for you.
Yeah, that's when I spoke to someone from Draft2Digital at Book Expo America a couple of years ago, and I know the big selling point of that point was the ease of use, and basically specifically mentioned how you don't have to worry about something like Meat Grinder. But it's good to know about the vetting of retailers, because I know Smashwords recently, well, not recently, but they had to drop, I think, Flipkart, because Flipkart was not able to make timely enough price changes, and it was biting people.
Exactly. I mean, going back early on, Sony and Diesel, we had contracts with them, and they could not perform in a timely manner. We had a contract with Flipkart that we never distributed beyond our alpha users, because any retailer that says a digital book has gone out of stock has some issues. So,
Yeah.
And if they're willing to fix those, we will. There's a lot of retailers that we have worked with a very long time to try to fix the issues. But if they're not willing to respond quickly and work on their system, then we don't want to expose our author partners to them.
That's definitely an understandable policy. All right. So does Draft2Digital work with the retailers to help set up promotions at all?
We do. My primary role is basically going to conferences and then merchandising. I've recently taught a couple other people to help me with the merchandising, because it's just been growing quite a bit. We've secured promotions at iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Scrib, 24 Symbols. Not all of our retailers yet. Like I've been really trying to track down all the people I need to talk to at Toledo, since it's multiple storefronts. But it's something, because of the way our system works, we don't have any upfront costs or anything, but we make 15% of net for any sales that you make while you're listed through us. So it's always better for us to help you sell more books. We could be just going out there and trying to find more authors, but it's not really the business we wanted to run. It's hard for us to compete when places like Author Solutions runs Google AdWords up to insane amounts of money. So we want to work with very informed authors and authors that have heard about us and trust us to help them sell more books. Sorry, I kind of lost track. What was the original question there? The promotions, yes. Yeah. So yes, we work a lot. A lot of our books have been featured at iBooks. We've set up exclusive pre-orders for people. We help them get some of the banner ads at the top of the different genre landing pages. We're frequently getting them into the free first in series areas that Apple has. It's sometimes hard to talk about the merchandising aspect of it, because all the retailers are different. And so it'd be very helpful if they all had a place to highlight free first in series, but they don't. And so we cater everything to each retailer. Barnes & Noble is much more about having a temporary sales. And so we schedule those. Barnes & Noble has a longer lead time, because they're more used to working with traditional publishing houses. So, with Apple, I submit something, it can take 2 to 3 weeks. A lot of times with Barnes & Noble, it can be 6 to 8 weeks, if not longer. Kobo tends to work with us around special promotions. And so it might be a seasonal promotion. It might be this weekend we're going to have 2 for 3 or 3 for 2, things of that nature. The Kobo Writing Life team in particular has done a lot to help indie authors. And so Mark Lefebvre and his team. So those are some things that we currently don't have access to, some of the special promotions that they set up. And they have a promotion page that they've opened to some authors. But we're talking to Kobo about that and trying to get more involved and work with that, because we're a big fan of Kobo, period. Like I said, they're our fastest growing channel. And with our focus on international and their focus on international, we want to work with them as much as possible.
Yeah, it seems like I've certainly seen a fair growth of Kobo recently. I got to say, one last thing. A lot of people, it seems like the best promotions come along, obviously, when you have a rep within a retailer. Now, I'm not going to ask whether you can set someone up with a rep, because that's if you could offer that service, then that'd be absurd. But let's say that an author has a rep. Are you able to facilitate retailer-specific promotions that the rep might want to set up with the author?
Yes, we work both with authors that don't have reps and authors that already do have a rep at different vendors. So it's It works a little bit differently at each vendor. Some of them don't have reps at all, and so we're working directly with the merchandisers. In some cases, we're working with the reps and the merchandisers. So it gets complicated. I feel like we do a great job because not all authors can afford to go to all the conferences. We end up, it's a good business need for us to be at the conferences. And so we make a lot of those face-to-face connections with the retailers, with their merchandisers, and try to leverage that really to help our authors get the most promotions.
All right, excellent. I'm going to hand you off to Jeff now and ask a few more questions.
Alrighty. Well, we've already dealt with my first question about pre-orders. So, all right. So my first question would be, what happens if someone has an account with Draft2Digital and Smashwords both? They choose to list their books with Draft2Digital and forget that they've also done so with Smashwords and all their retailers. Now, there's overlap. What sort of problems would arise? I mean, we know Smashwords can take a while to get the message to the retailers to pull the book. How quickly could Draft2Digital fix that problem?
It's generally not too big of an issue. At all the major retailers, they don't mind if you double list for a little while. At least ours. Amazon does get picky if you double list. We don't recommend you double list because it just kind of leads to confusion, especially like if you're running a promotion. At Barnes & Noble, you don't really know which version of your book they're going to see in the search engine. It can vary by who types in what and exactly what they type in. So generally, we tell people, if you're bringing over a book either from Nook Press or from Smashwords or any retailer to Draft2Digital, you want to leave the old version up and list the new version so that they link, so that you get all your old reviews. Once they've linked, then you delist the book from the other place. Not good to double list, but it's not a big problem. In some cases, there are some retailers that just, like if you have a user-provided ISBN, some retailers, it might wait until their version comes down before our version goes up, just because they're using that as their unique identifier.
Okay, so you mentioned that the titles will actually link. So for instance, let's just say if I release my title A with Smashwords at Barnes & Noble, and then I know I'm gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna give Draft2Digital a try. I'm going to pretty much leave Smashwords alone and then create everything over at Draft2Digital. So they're just gonna add it like right under the already existing entry that Smashwords has created with Barnes & Noble.
They will link up as long as the title and the author name are correct. Now, this part that's specific to Barnes & Noble. Some of the other systems work differently. Apple does not have a mechanism right now for moving over reviews, so that if you have a lot of reviews at Apple, you probably don't want to move your book just because they can't move the review. They have started to be able to link series regardless of, if part of it comes from some other distributor and the part comes from us. They have started to link those together.
Okay, yeah, I've noticed that too in Apple, that they've started, and right about the same time, I think Smashwords introduced their series manager where you can specify which titles belong to which series, and Apple picked up on that too. So that is good to know.
I've always found it funny that they call that their enhanced metadata series thing, and we've included series data from the very beginning. And I think it's one of the big reasons why our books tend to outsell their books is just we've had all the metadata that we can send. We go ahead and collect. Not every retailer uses all the metadata, but we're going to go ahead and make sure we get it all. We send it to them. We do some vetting on the metadata side too, so that when new buy site categories are added, we go ahead and make sure people know about them. And if we have stuff that qualifies, for instance, Apple did not have a new adult category up until within the last year. So once that change was made, we went ahead and resubmitted all our books that were listed as new adult in our database. That updated them at Apple, because otherwise they'd gone into contemporary romance. And it kind of gave those authors an advantage, because at that time, new adult was a far smaller category. We also make sure, we pay attention to how a vendor shows their webpage. And so at Barnes & Noble, it's not very clear that a book is part of a series. You have to go all the way down to the product details, and there's a very tiny link to the series. So we go ahead and we insert the series information into the title field with the title and make sure people know this is part one of such and such series. At Apple, we don't have to do that because they list the title and then the series link right underneath it. And so to them, we just send the title in the right title field series in the right title or in the right series field.
Okay, perfect. You also talked about mentioning your style guides or lack thereof, which I think is really cool because I've dealt with the meat grinder. It is really picky. Don't get me wrong. I like what it does and how it can convert everything. And you guys say specifically you don't really have to worry about that too much. So my question for you would be, are there any red flags that are known to cause problems during conversion?
With our system, not really. I would say our issues would be if it's highly graphical in nature. Our system does work for some graphics. It just kind of depends. That would be like really the only hang up that I can think of. Things after the conversion, though, we scan books for any number of reasons. One of the reasons we scan books is to make sure if it's sexual content that ends up being flagged as erotica. One is for trying to make sure that someone's not submitting someone else's work. We scan books to make sure that someone's not copying pages off the internet, like Wikipedia pages or Wattpad. And then we scan your book to see if there are anything that is going to cause a book to be rejected by a vendor. So like we mentioned Apple earlier, not liking Amazon links. They also don't like for people to mention Kindle or Amazon anywhere in the book, other than if you're talking about you're using those words in the other sense. And so we scan for those. And when we detect things like that, we have a human being like actually open that up and look and see, is this going to cause it to be rejected or not? And so we can catch those before we send them to Apple, because getting a book through their system the first time is much quicker than getting it through a re-review. And so, we scan up front to get rid of any problems that might cause you issues. When people submit EPUBs to us, not all EPUBs are generated equally. And so we do a lot of fixing in the background if someone gives us a bad EPUB. I haven't been in operations in a long time. I've hired some great people to handle most operations, but I believe Sigil used to be really bad about generating proper EPUBs, but it was consistently bad. And so we were able to fix those on our end, fix the problem with it. And then we didn't even alert the user. We just went ahead and fixed it. And, it was just one less headache for them to have to deal with.
Very, very cool. That's definitely encouraging, because I've had my fair share going around and around with that certain conversion that your competitor uses there. So it's good to hear. All right, that's it for me. Let me hand you back over to Lindsay.
All right, yeah, let's get into the good stuff of how to actually sell more books on these these other platforms.
Yes.
Because I know you already touched on it. A lot of authors I've heard, they like Amazon because it seems easier to gain traction over there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them have tried like Kobo and Apple and struggled. Do you have any insights on like what can we do to sell more books on those platforms?
So one thing I would encourage everyone, take all advice with a grain of salt, because so much of this is dependent on genre and subgenre. There are genres that just don't work very well on some platforms that work very well on others. So, pay attention to other authors. Like, obviously I have a reason to want you to go wide. And I encourage you to think about going wide at some point in your career. I think it's very key for a long-term writing career to diversify. And so you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. But diversification means a lot of things. It might mean that you have one series in KU and you have one series that's wide. It might mean that you have a traditional contract and you're a hybrid author. All those different approaches are just different ways of, making sure you have a long-term career, and that if one changes radically overnight, you're somewhat safe. Because as we know, Amazon has changed the game and given you about 2 weeks. I remember a couple of years ago, Google Play changed their algorithm, and people who were selling very well at Google Play suddenly were no longer. I would not encourage you to be all in with one vendor anywhere. So that being said, selling more books at the other places. First and foremost, make sure you're marketing and letting people know that you're on the other places. Just putting your book up isn't going to, people forget frequently that they have been marketing for years to Amazon. And so there's a reason why they sell better on Amazon. And when I see like on Facebook, on Twitter, they're doing giveaways of Amazon gift cards, but not giving like an iBooks card or a Kobo card. There's a reason why they're not finding those readers. That also shows the retailers that you're very interested in helping them, and it gets their merchandisers interested in, Kobo is a great example of Mark pays attention to authors on social media, and the people that are out there really trying to push Kobo, he's going out of his way to help get them more promotions. And likewise, we're trying to do that for them at the different retailers like iBooks and Barnes & Noble. So make sure that you're actually marketing towards those other places. I always encourage people, it's so pivotal that you really pay attention to the storefronts of all the other places where you're selling your book. I found that a lot of authors were early adopters of digital. And so most authors I've met read on Kindle. Make sure you check out the iBook store and how a user goes through it and what they are typically seeing, because you really want to have a good understanding of how a retailer categorizes something, what types of promotions they have so that you can ask for them. And it's something that's one feature we provide for, or one service we provide for authors, just being able to explain to them how the different storefronts work that we work with, because they don't know that they can ask for an exclusive pre-order at Apple. So know the retailers as much as you can. Start gathering data on your readers, like for yourself. So that's why I think email lists are so critical. Keep track of how they're coming to you. Like if they're an Apple user, if they're a Barnes & Noble user, don't just blast them all with Amazon links. That's just going to make them angry. BookBub, no one will tell you that BookBub is a bad idea. BookBub is probably one of the better ways to start getting traction if you haven't before. BookBub has said repeatedly that they prefer books that are wide and are more likely to select them because their readership is they've got readers at all the different platforms. And so that can be an advantage. I'd say those are the big ones that I can think of right now.
Okay, and I would definitely agree with that. Get a BookBub if you can. But I've actually, Barnes & Noble has kind of been my number 2 for a long time. And I feel like when I do get a BookBub, at Amazon, it wears off more quickly, and I'll actually see the impact and the increased sales for longer at Barnes & Noble. So that's nice.
I definitely agree that Amazon has tweaked their algorithms over the years to churn through new material, and they also have so many more books submitted to them than everywhere else. No other retailer is requiring you to be exclusive right now. And so there's always just going to be a lot more books at Amazon to deal with. But yeah, the other retailers, you get a little bit more stickiness over time. Not just BookBub, there's all the other services like FreeBooksy and InstaFreebie, and I guess the mid-list sold to a traditional publisher. But there's a lot of other email blasts that work. Targeted Facebook ads, targeting by people who are using those platforms. More and more authors are starting to use those targeted Facebook ads, and make sure you think about including the other retailers. This can be especially powerful with like box sets. One really nice thing, Apple doesn't have like a upper or lower limit, regardless if you go through us or go direct. They're always at the same cost. So like if you sell a book above $9.99, you're still going to get 70%. So that's fantastic. At a Kobo, they have a lower limit, so $2.99 under, they lower your royalties, but over $9.99 they don't. Draft2Digital doesn't have an upper or lower limit at any of our retailers, and so Barnes & Noble, Kobo, if you're selling a box set that's higher than $9.99 or you're having a 99-cent sale, you might make more money going through a distributor. So that's just something at Amazon, they punish you for going above that $9.99, and so I see a lot of people doing special promotions and Facebook ads for bigger box sets.
Yeah, that's a good point about the Facebook ads too, is I think everybody goes for Amazon and in the US, whereas you might be able to bid less if you're targeting like Canadian Kobo readers, or
Exactly.
I know with Apple, you can specifically look for people who are using the Mac iOS and only show the ad to them. So that's a nice thing.
Yeah, I would highly recommend not targeting Kobo US users though, because there's not any. You can sell like 5 books in Kobo US and be on the top 10. So, but yeah, Kobo does great in other countries. Just they don't have the market share here in the US.
Yeah, and hey, if I want to make a living as an author, I'm not going to be picky about where my sales come from, right?
Exactly.
All right, I have to ask for maybe keeping science fiction and fantasy in mind in particular, do you still find that doing a perma-free book one in a series is a good way to get noticed and find readers on these other platforms?
I do, and what I constantly hear from people is the sell-through rate is much higher, especially at Apple. We did something, and this is the aggregate. It's not just for sci-fi and fantasy, but it was across all of our books with a free first in series. The whole series went on to do 3 times as much revenue as the series that did not have a free first in series. I think when you think about the ways in which we consume media today and think about the other, like the music genre, you think about TV, and people have gotten used to getting to sample something before buying. I think apps especially have changed the way we think about digital media. And so a lot of times an app's free and then it's got in-game purchases or it's got in-app purchases. We see Amazon Video and iTunes Video giving away the first episode of a TV show, and then that's what gets people to buy the rest. It's just the way the economy is going. I know a lot of authors, it can be painful to give away one of your babies, but you really have to look at it as a marketing move, as the overall health of the series rather than just one individual book. So I would encourage every author to have a free first in series if they have a series. I don't know that I'd encourage you to always have every first in series free. It might be good to rotate those around if you have multiple series. The reason I say that is because there are a lot of those email blasts of free books that scrape websites and just look for something new that's free. So maybe you have one of your series have a free first in series and that for 6 months, and then you switch to another series. Think about, over time, you want to promote your whole catalog on and on, unless it's very timely for some reason. The great thing about being an indie author is you're always going to own the rights. You're not worrying about, I have to sell this many units in this many days to stay on bookshelves. Your whole catalog is going to stay out there forever. And so I think that might be a strategy that might be good for people.
Yeah, and we've talked about before how perma-free may not be as effective on Amazon anymore since they've got Kindle Unlimited, and a lot of the former perma-free shoppers are now subscribers, but they don't have the subscription services on Apple and Kobo and the other sites yet. So maybe it will continue to work well there.
Yeah, I think KU definitely. I hadn't even thought about that angle, but KU changes the whole Amazon marketplace quite a bit, and so I think likely a lot of the people that were looking for perma-frees might have checked out KU, especially, sometimes Amazon practically gives it away to just, keep building people into their platform.
Definitely. I think you can get 6 months free or something if you buy a new something.
Yeah, like around Christmas time especially, like if you get into Prime or you buy one of their Kindles or different giveaways, and that's brilliant. I mean, Amazon, very, very smart. Love everything they're doing. I just wish they didn't force authors in this awkward position of having to choose to be exclusive, because it hurts readers quite a bit. The only people it helps is Amazon. We're seeing that Apple's doing that in music, and it's got a lot of people angry. These exclusive offers only help the retailers. They hurt the artists. They hurt the readers. So I wish it wasn't out there. I hate that it keeps books out of libraries. I hate that ACX exclusive contracts keep Audible books or audiobooks out of libraries. Just something I wish they would change.
Well, we'll keep hoping.
Yes.
You mentioned pre-orders before and that people can do them for the various platforms. One question I've gotten asked a lot, is there any point in doing a pre-order if you're a new author and you don't yet really have a fan base? What do you think on that?
Not really. I mean, if I were a new author that had pre-written like 3 books in a series, so you already had them done or mostly done, I might do it in that situation. Like if you were, so that when you released one, you had the other one ready to go. If I was a new author, I would not do that if I didn't have the books done, because that's a lot of pressure. And the worst thing you can do is like disappoint people's expectations. They're really for established authors, though. It's if you're a brand new author, I would not spend a lot of time worrying about pre-orders or any of the other strategies. I would just worry about writing the next book, because you're going to get better and better. Your marketing, I think that's one mistake I see new authors making, is spending a lot of money trying to market when they have one book. And there's so much marketing revolves on having an ROI of sell-through. And so lowering the price on the first book, maybe you get full price for the second and third book. And so write more.
Okay, and for those who maybe they're about to publish their 4th or 5th book in the series, what is the best practice for the pre-orders in order to, how can they leverage that to get more sales overall?
So I would encourage, what I hear people doing is going to other retailers. Like if you have an opportunity for an iBooks exclusive, I would do it, because it doesn't have to be exclusive to iBooks the whole time. It can be exclusive to iBooks for a couple of weeks or a month, and then you can go ahead and list it at the other retailers. I would pitch it. Like you can pitch it through your distributor, or you can pitch it through, they have like a contact us button that lets you ask for promotions. I don't know that I've ever heard of anyone get one picked through the contact us button. But like go through your distributor if you know a rep, if you meet them at a conference. iBooks exclusives are very powerful marketing tools. After that, I would go ahead and list it everywhere for a while. I think I'd say, in my opinion, 2 to 3 months is a good pre-order time. Doing any less than that, I don't think is super helpful. And you might consider not listing a pre-order at Amazon until like the week before, because of the way that they spread out. Amazon works a little bit differently, where you rank up, the book ranks as it's a pre-order. And so all those sales don't count. It doesn't make you spike up on the launch day. Whereas Apple gives you kind of a double incentive of you rank throughout your pre-orders, and then you spike up with all your sales on the day of the release.
Yeah, we've definitely seen people using that to get on the bestseller list too, since
Yes.
all of the accumulated 3 months worth of pre-orders all show up on that one week when they release it.
Yeah, it's a very nice way to just try to help. It gives you something you can market to, and then aim for those bestseller lists. I will say, like on our platform currently, we don't display how many pre-orders you have anywhere. We do get some of those numbers that are just erratic, and so we're trying to get the vendors to give them to us automatically, so that we can easily display them. But if you have a pre-order set up on Draft2Digital, you can email our support anytime, and we'll give you the most current numbers we have. We generally get numbers anywhere between Monday and Wednesday. So it varies by the retailer. At Apple, we can look them up any time, but the others, it's kind of just waiting for someone to email us the list. And so, it's nice to know, especially if you're marketing your book, how it's doing.
Definitely. And you mentioned, we've kind of talked about having reps and having somebody that wants to help you promo your book for you on the various sites. Do you have any recommendations for people? Do you basically have to be a big seller in order to catch their eye, or is there any way to kind of make a relationship with someone when you're a newer author?
I encourage people to think about it long term. Start making the connections to different people, even if you are fairly new. You never know what kind of specific promotion they're going to get. Like there are promotions that come along that Apple has that are very targeted at something, and it helps. Like a lot of times I will think, oh, I met this one author and they had a zombie book. So it always helps. I think this is very much a relationship driven industry to start working on those relationships, be that at conferences, if you can go to them, talk amongst your friends and figure out who's been helpful in their career. You just never know what they're going to be what they are going to try to market at any given time. Sometimes fads come along and then people are looking for what's like this. And so, I mentioned zombies earlier. That's something I had pitched to Apple and got them to do, was to do a zombie promotion around the time that The Walking Dead was returning, because I just thought that'd be a cool idea. And so it gives us a chance to promote some books that might not otherwise, they were a little bit smaller, but found some readership through that. Sometimes we'll be going through and looking for things to nominate for the free first in series and won't have anything in particular in mind. And so, it might be that you just emailed me or you just were in contact and that just reminded us and we nominated your book and it got some exposure. So
people should email you every week just to stay in your, hey, Dan, your beard was looking good on the Sci-Fi Marketing Podcast last week. Just want you to remember my zombie book.
I would say politely ask, maybe not every week, but, every so often. Don't get too upset if you don't hear back for a little bit. And sometimes we are waiting to hear back from merchandisers for a month and then they select everything. And so we try to keep in contact with people throughout the process, but it's not always it's not like we give them a list and like, okay, we'll take everything. It's kind of we give them a list and then they take some of them. Then we give them some of the ones they didn't choose last time again. And sometimes it takes time. But yeah, politely ask.
Dan has a worried look on his face now for those who are not watching on the video. He's like, oh, am I going to get a lot of email this week?
Thousands of emails. Yeah. And I try to let people know if there's something that is going to keep them from getting a promotion. Like, I just let them know up front, Apple's not going to take this for this reason. That's very difficult. Sometimes people argue with me about it, and I've submitted thousands of things now. So some of the advice they're always hearing is making sure your book is genre appropriate, your cover. So many authors are like, but I made this really artistic cover because I really wanted to stand out, and merchandisers are looking for things to look mostly like everything else they're promoting right now, stand out a little bit. And so sometimes people have beautiful covers that will never get promoted, and trying to explain that to them is difficult. So, if you're writing space opera, it's probably better to have a starship on there somewhere than not. If it feels fairly obvious that you did this or it wasn't professionally done, that's going to hold you back quite a bit. It always helps the more reviews you have. I go through and when someone asks me to nominate their book, I try to find which retailer they have the most reviews on and make sure that all the retailers know this is well reviewed at this other retailer. Or we go through our aggregate sales and we look for books that are, if a book really takes off at Barnes & Noble, but it's not taking off at iBooks, we think it'll sell anywhere. And so we let the retailer know this book is really selling well over here. Maybe it'll sell well if we get it in front of more eyes at Apple. And so anytime that you're succeeding in some way or you have a lot of reviews, anything that helps us sell your book, let us know.
Yeah, it seems like it might be good too for somebody who's been in KU and sold really well over there and they want to go wide, and maybe this can be a way to help, like if they've sold 300 reviews over there and now they're going to launch into iBooks or.
Yeah, we had really good success with, this one made me really happy because like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But Toby Neal is a mystery and she writes mysteries and it's based in Hawaii. And she was someone, she had been exclusive with Amazon for a long time. She has a Kindle World for her series, and she decided she wanted to go wide. And we were able to kind of get all of the merchandisers on board with it, and she hit like the USA Today bestseller list fairly quickly off the bat of going wide, which is incredible. And it's found a whole new group of readers at the different retailers because of that. But it doesn't always work like that. So kind of when the stars cross, it's fantastic.
All right, cool. Well, last question for me is just, do you have any tips for getting those international sales? Do you feel like permafree works in the other countries too, or is there anything we can do to sell more in Germany or Italy or France?
I don't feel like permafree works quite as well. And looking in the differences between the number of units, like paid purchases and units downloaded, it wasn't as big of a difference as it is in the US. So they're not downloading as many free books. I would say for the international sales, just make sure that you're including some forms of advertising for the international areas. We do go ahead and we've set up some of our promotions. Like, think of promotions for those international areas. So we work with the iBooks reps for iBooks USA, but we also work with the ones in Canada, Australia, the UK, and Europe. And so we're pitching different ideas that we think would appeal to them in different countries. If you're an Australian author, definitely try to pitch to iBooks Australia, because they're much more likely to feature a book. Likewise, if you're Canadian, let Kobo know, because they are always looking for national authors to promote in a slightly different way than they would like a New York Times bestseller. You might not have to have as much of a following yet if you're local to that country.
All right, cool. Well, I will let them know when I spend like a week in Canada. I was there for a week.
Yeah.
Would you like to promote my books? I went to Whistler. It was great.
The other thing is, what Mark Lefebvre and I from Kobo and I preach is make sure your book pricing is not just in foreign countries, is not just based off the conversion rate. And so if it's an ugly number, like if it's $1 or £1.27 instead of £1.49 or £1.99, that turns a lot of readers off. There's a lot of psychology behind ending in certain numbers and certain currencies. And so if you're setting your own prices in the different, or if you have the option to set your own price rather than going off just the US dollar conversion, we highly encourage you to do so. On our site, we let you set territorial prices for all the different currencies. We've actually began to, if you don't set a territorial price, but you just let us do it off the conversion, we've started rounding it up to different tiers. It's something iBooks has always done. So if you've ever set up a book on iBooks, they have different tiers for pricing that you have to go into. Those tiers fit those pretty numbers. So you want to be just like in the US and Australia, you want to be at like 49 or 99. Just don't be weird numbers for the cost, because it will tip off some readers that your book's not traditionally published.
All right, good information. Thank you. Better let the guys talk a little bit more. Go ahead, Joe.
All right. Well, my first question actually is sort of answered by that. We've had some people come on the show who have said that different international markets can justify different prices, and it sounds like you can cater your price to different territories. Have you found that certain international markets can entertain higher prices than others?
Yes, from talking to a number of Australians, you can definitely price higher in Australia, especially for print books. They were paying upwards of $35 for a book. I guess that'd be Australian dollars. But yeah, I was just talking to an Australian author about that, and I've heard that from multiple Australians that you can price higher. Canada, I've heard you can price higher, and I've heard that especially from Kobo. Then I've heard from other Canadians that they don't want you raising the price. So I think that readers are used to spending a little bit more, and so you might get there are some readers that are hesitant and see cost as a measure of value in a different way than Americans do. And so you can raise your prices in different markets, and I would definitely experiment with it. But Australia and Canada are the markets I've particularly heard that's true for. I wouldn't say I see a huge variance in our prices, like what price ranges sell well in Germany versus the US. For us, our bestsellers tend to be about $3.99, somewhere in that range, and indies have kind of been working their way higher ever since traditional book publishers raised their prices so much more. So that's kind of I think that's a good trend for the industry, is for books to be sold for a little bit more. I've heard the UK you want to price a little bit lower. I've heard in India you want to price as low as you can go if you want to build a readership there. We don't, with Amazon kind of pulling, or I'm sorry, with Barnes & Noble pulling out of the UK, Amazon has a very, very big part of the market share of UK. We don't see a ton of UK sales anymore. And then with India, with Flipkart leaving, Kobo's taking over Flipkart's customers, but Amazon probably has easily has the biggest share of the market in India right now for digital books. But it's still an economy where people are mostly buying print anyway.
Okay. And I guess along the same lines, do you find that different retailers can sort of justify different prices? Like you mentioned earlier that there's like no max price for certain royalty rates at some of these places.
Yeah, I would say because of pricing rules, you're going to find most of the retailers end up having to be around the same price anyway. Amazon is especially very strict about that, making sure no one has a lower price.
That's true.
It's one of the reasons we don't go to Google Play right now, is because they keep control over price. And so they can drop the price any time without notification. That's a very, very dangerous mix with Amazon price matching.
Yeah, it really is.
And their mean letters that might kick you out of KU for a while, or not out of KU, but out of KDP for a while. So, I feel for authors who have to deal with that. Where we see some people making box sets, like maybe a complete series for $19.99 or $29.99 on other retailers, and not listing it at Amazon, because Amazon punishes you so heavily for being over $9.99. So economically, it just might not make sense to list the book at all at Amazon. Whereas I will say Kobo readers, for whatever reason, buy more box sets than anybody I know. Like on our outliers every month, we have like the top 30 sold. Everywhere else, it tends to be individual titles. At Kobo, it ends up being box sets over and over. And so have the box sets especially available at Kobo.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny that Amazon does everything they possibly can to inspire exclusivity, but some of their practices might chase certain books away from their service. Exactly. One last question. I'll boil it down to a simpler than what I have on my notes here. But if someone wants to try both exclusivity and wide at some point, would you say that it's better to be wide first and then exclusive, or on Amazon, or exclusive on Amazon and then wide?
I think exclusive on Amazon, then wide. I do hear a lot of people giving the advice to young authors to go into KU at first while they're learning how to do everything. And I don't think that's horrible advice. I mean, obviously I'd prefer they go wide from the very beginning, but start at KU, kind of learn the industry, and then start working your way towards wide. Okay. But I think it can be bad to be wide and then go exclusive, because you might have dropped, there might be readers that hadn't finished your series that can no longer buy the book at their retailer, or perhaps at all, because of, Amazon's only in 14 markets, as opposed to 195 plus that Kobo gets you into.
Yeah, that's I mean, just out of general laziness, my philosophy's always been that it should be probably exclusive first, then wide, just so you don't have to bother chasing down everything that's been distributed outward.
Exactly.
All right, well, that's it for my questions. I'll hand you off to Jeff for the last few.
Alrighty. We've heard from more than one person who recommend book descriptions should contain certain keywords in place for certain retailers in order to be picked up by certain algorithms. We won't name any names. Have you had any retailers indicate that this could be true with their own reporting platforms to you guys?
So the retailers will not reveal any information whatsoever about their algorithms to us. Like, I'm always trying to get them drunk and find out. Like, I want to know too. Like, how does it all work? We can kind of tell some of them use keywords, some of them don't. You can tell that with some of the retailers, having keywords in the title works and others it doesn't. Most of them don't like there to be a bunch of keywords in the title. I don't really have a great answer to this question. I encourage people to make your book look professional, and so like I wouldn't do keyword stuffing in the title. I encourage people to organically include keywords that they think are highly likely to your readers would be searching for in the description. Retailers don't like if you just put a list of search terms or tags at the bottom of your description. They hate that. And so maybe it might get you a little bit of love in their search engine, but it might disqualify your book for a promotion that they're thinking about doing. Make sure you've got it categorized correctly. I think everyone's frustrated by I see this rampant on Amazon where people are like writing books that are more romantic than not, and then classifying it as science fiction or romance or science fiction or fantasy. And readers get angry about that. Authors get angry about that. So make sure you classify your book right for your audience. Fill out all the metadata. Make sure you've got your series metadata exactly right. Double check once it's up at a retailer that the series are linked. Those are all going to be the things that are going to help you make sure you're as discoverable as possible on their engine. And that's stuff that we're doing in the background with our auditing for authors who don't have time to do all that.
Very sweet. That would save a lot of time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure you can answer this, but I was wondering, many authors like to drop names in their blurbs. Fans of Harry Potter and Percy Jackson will love this, and so on. Is this a recommended practice, and is there anything authors can do with their book descriptions that will set off any red flags at Draft2Digital?
So saying like fans of so-and-so will probably like this really is not an issue in the description. Some of the retailers don't like it if you just give a list of if you use other authors' names as keywords. So if in the keyword field you just filled in like Grisham and different stuff, we have seen people come up with very creative pen names that are combinations of other famous authors' names. Or like if you try to name your book, make your name of your book look like the name of another famous work with a slightly different name for the author. As long as everything you're doing is very reasonable, we have no problem with it. Nor do any of our retailers. We go out of our way to accept anything that our retailers would, with the only exception being public domain. Public domain was very difficult for us because of public domain is not the same internationally. A book might be in the public domain in the US and not be in the UK. That's very hard for us to check easily. There's no easy place to look for that. And so since we tend to distribute books with worldwide rights, we stop sending out public domain. But there are companies that are more litigious than others. And so if you mention Disney, for instance, we might flag it because Disney is known to send out cease and desist letters all the time. Minecraft used to be the people who created Minecraft used to encourage fan fiction, and now Microsoft bought them and they send out mean legal letters. And so if you have a book that mentions Minecraft, we're probably going to be like, hey, we can't submit this right now, but if you change it a little bit so it doesn't use any of the specific words they're looking for, those things are things that we look for. At Apple, they don't want you to have a price in the description or any mention of free. So in your description, we will flag your description if it's got any of those things. I think to them, the argument is that people might forget to update the description, and then it might tell readers it's free when it's not. So we go ahead and flag that ahead of time, like if we see it, and let you know that's going to be rejected by Apple and give you a chance to fix it. Likewise, if you mention Amazon in your description, Apple's going to have a fit. So just don't do it.
Good to know. All righty, that's it for my questions. Let me hand you back to Lindsay. I think she's got a listener question for you.
Excellent.
Actually, we have a couple because somebody asked one on Twitter too, or asked 3. So we'll try to go through it quickly since you've actually been here for more than an hour already. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, no problem.
All right. First one, Patty Jensen has a couple. She's been on our show before and she does really well for herself. She is interested in Google Play and is wondering if you guys have any plans to add them to who you distribute to.
We keep talking to them. That pricing issue is the big sticking point. We want to make sure authors retain control of price. So it's kept us from going forward with Google Play. We have a lot of hope. We just continue building better tools and keep talking to Google Play people. We were good friends with the Oyster people that got acquired into Google. And so, we've kind of kept in contact with them, and we hope they'll change that policy because we know they're working with some individual authors without, giving the author price control. And so we think we could bring them a whole lot more books. And we have a very excellent engine for catching plagiarism, which was, one of their big problems when they closed Google Play to all of their to new authors.
All right. So hopefully coming in the future.
Oh, yes. We keep talking to them. We keep talking to all kinds of people. So
she was also curious, how does one access promos on Barnes & Noble through you guys?
So you can email author relations at draft2digital.com or just email support and they'll get it through to me and the other person that's helping with promotions. With Barnes & Noble, they've got a free Friday slot that we typically have gotten several slots throughout the year. They do Nook Daily Deals and Nook Romantic Daily Deals, and so we nominate books for those. That tends to be about a 6 to 8 week lead time. Getting lots of pre-orders at Barnes & Noble can help get featured in the coming soon section. And then they have a Nook bundles page. And so if you've got a bundle, let us know. And we try to get bundles featured there fairly often. And that page tends to be less lead time than some of the other planned promotions.
All right, cool. I'm going to put together a bundle just for them. And I didn't know that it has a special page for that. That's great. All right, one more question from Patty. What are you doing specifically to break the KU stranglehold on self-published authors?
So we're building a long-term foundation. It's really hard to compete with Amazon right now, and we understand there's some subgenres that just don't work elsewhere as well. What I love about the Amazon store is they have, you can break things down to such specific categories, and you just don't have that at like Apple. They've got very high level, they've got like mysteries and thrillers, but if I wanted to do like mysteries and thrillers set in World War II, I could do that with Amazon and couldn't do that with Apple. We're always encouraging the retailers to refine their whole storefronts to make them much, much easier to use. Working on our discoverability tools. And so just to try to help authors find the new readers at the different platforms. And if we add enough retailers over time, we don't think any one retailer is going to beat Amazon in the near future. But if we have, 10 to 15 great smaller retailers, we hope to be able to add up to more than 50% of your revenue over time. So we just keep kind of plugging away at that. And there are a lot of romance authors right now who've gotten to that where they're making at least 50% or more of their income from the other sales channels. Mysteries and thrillers have started picking up. Some of the other genres just haven't gotten to that point yet where, a lot of authors I talk to are more in the 70-30 or 80-20 range, where Amazon's still a lion's share of their income. And so we're doing everything we can to try to help with that. And it's one of the reasons why we make our systems so quick and easy to opt in and out of. If you have to go into the KU exclusive for business reasons, we don't want to punish you for doing that. We wanted to make it very easy and very quick for you to do so. We just hope that as part of everyone's long-term strategy, they're thinking about what they're going to do if and when the terms change.
All right, cool. One last question, kind of a technical one here. Misty asks, do you plan to adjust the upload for pre-orders? As things stand right now, it's not entirely clear when you're in the process that you don't need a file attached, and there's no way to remove a dummy file without contacting customer service.
Yes, I think we're trying to approach that on two fronts. We've been lousy at author education and getting the word out about how to use our system. We recently hired Kevin Tumlinson, who many of you probably know from conferences, or he does the Word Slinger podcast and like 4 other podcasts about the self-publishing world. He's got a great marketing background and a great education background. And so we're really working on that. And, we want to get some blog posts out there, maybe some video content to kind of show how to do those things. And then working on our overall user experience and trying to highlight to users to make sure they know not to use dummy files in certain situations. It's very difficult for us to catch, like if someone like uploads an unedited version of their book to us, it's hard for us to know that that's an unedited version, that's just a dummy file or a placeholder file. And so, yeah, right now it's not very clear that you probably should use a no manuscript pre-order in every situation, but we're going to work on that and making that much more clear.
All right, great. That is the last of the questions. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And is there anything you'd like to let us know, or where to find you online or anything like that?
Yeah, you can find us. We're out there on the social medias at Draft2Digital. I think it's like facebook.com/Draft2Digital. We're at Draft2Digital on Twitter, at Draft2Digital on Instagram. So we'd love to have you follow us there. We've been doing a little bit more with our blog recently, so please check out the Draft2Digital.com/blog. And Kevin's just put up some amazing posts lately about the psychology of covers, and one about how to do descriptions that are just great posts. And so I encourage you to check those out.
All right, great. I will find the links to the blog and Facebook and put those up in the show notes for anybody that wants to come check it out at marketingsff.com. This is show 100. Dan, you didn't know you were here for the anniversary.
I feel like a rock star now.
You are. We were going to get like Stephen King or somebody, but I was like, no, Dan Wood is available. So that's who we want.
See, that makes sense. I think you made the right choice.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks for all the info, Dan. It was nice to meet you.
Thanks. Good to meet you too.
So long, everybody.